He walked out on US and never looked back. But years later, when he needed me most, I made a decision he never saw coming. 15 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw my father. 15 years since he walked out and never looked back. No calls. No letters. No explanation. Just gone. And now? Now he was dying. And suddenly, he wanted me to take care of him. The email came out of nowhere. A hospital name. A diagnosis. A request. Your father is very sick. He would like to see you. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. This had to be a mistake. A joke. Because my father? He didn't ask for things. He took. And when he was done, he left. That's who he was. That's who he had always been. Memories flooded back. The night he packed his bags, his voice cold and empty. This isn't working. My mother, standing in the doorway, shaking. Me, too young to understand what was happening. And then, silence. Because after that night, he never came back. No birthdays. No holidays. Not even a single word. I clenched my jaw, forcing the memories down. This wasn't the same man. That version of my father had been strong, untouchable. Now? Now he was just a sick old man in a hospital bed. Alone. Afraid. And for the first time in his life, he needed someone. He needed me. But after everything, did I even owe him that? I didn't respond to the email. Not right away. I let it sit there unopened, like a wound I wasn't ready to touch. Because the moment I answered, the moment I acknowledged it, it would mean admitting that he still had some kind of hold on me. And after 15 years, I wasn't sure if I wanted that. The next few days were strange. I went to work. I ate my meals. I did everything I was supposed to do. But in the back of my mind, the email burned. A single sentence repeating over and over again. Your father is very sick. He would like to see you. Not I'm sorry. Not I regret leaving. Just a request. Like I was some stranger being called in for a favor. Like I was supposed to just drop everything and run to his bedside. Did he really think it would be that easy? I opened the email again. Read it carefully. The message wasn't even from him. It was from a hospital social worker. Someone assigned to contact family members when a patient had no one else. That hit harder than I expected. Because for all his mistakes, all his selfish choices, this was where he ended up. Alone. No friends. No wife. No family waiting for him. No one except the son he had abandoned. I shut my laptop, my stomach twisting. Was this supposed to make me feel bad for him? To feel guilty? Because if that was the goal, it was kind of working. And I hated that. I hated that after everything he had done, he still had the power to make me feel anything at all. And maybe that's why I finally picked up the phone. Not because I forgave him. Not because I wanted to help. But because after 15 years of silence, I needed to know. Why now? Why, after all this time, was he finally reaching out? I didn't even realize I had dialed the number until I heard the ringing. Once. Twice. Then a click. A woman's voice, calm, professional. Hello, this is St. Vincent's Hospital. How can I help you? I hesitated. My throat felt tight, like my body was trying to stop me from saying the words. But I forced them out anyway. I got an email about a patient. My father. A brief pause. Then typing. Name? I said it. And just hearing it out loud again after all these years made my stomach twist. Like speaking it gave him weight again, like he had been nothing more than a ghost until this moment. More typing. Then, finally. Yes, he's here. Would you like to be transferred to his room? I should have said no. I should have hung up. But instead, I heard my own voice say, yes. A few seconds passed. Then a soft click. A rustling sound. And then, his voice. Weak. Scratchy. Like the man I had once known was already gone, and this was just the last piece of him left. You actually called. No apology. No I'm sorry. Just that. Like he couldn't believe it himself. Like he had expected me to just leave him to die alone. And honestly, maybe I should have. Hearing him again sent me back in time. To all the nights I spent wondering where he was. To all the birthdays that passed with no calls. to every single moment where I needed a father, and he was nowhere to be found. And now? Now he wanted to talk? Now, after all these years, when his body was failing and he had no one left, now I mattered? I gritted my teeth, gripping the phone tighter. Why did you call me? His breath was shaky. For the first time, I heard something in his voice I had never heard before. Not arrogance. Not anger. Not indifference. Fear. He was scared. Of dying. Of being alone. Of the fact that after everything, the only person left to care was the son he had abandoned. And for the first time in 15 years, I had the power. The question was, what was I going to do with it? I didn't speak for a long time. Just held the phone to my ear, listening to him breathe. Slow, uneven, weak. 15 years of silence, and now he was waiting for me to say something. Like he had the right. Like he deserved my words. But after everything, I didn't owe him anything. Finally, he spoke again. I know you hate me. A statement, not a question. Good. At least he wasn't pretending to be clueless. But just hearing him say it, asterisk asterisk like it was some small inconvenience instead of 15 years of abandonment, asterisk asterisk made my blood boil. He knew what he did. He knew the pain he caused. And now that he was sick, now that he was dying, now he wanted to acknowledge it? I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the phone. Why now? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Not because I wanted an apology. Not because I wanted closure. But because, deep down, I needed to hear him say it. I needed to know if he was actually capable of regret. Silence. Then, his breath hitched. Like he was trying to find the right words. Like he was searching for something that didn't exist. Because I don't have much time left. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, I regret what I did. Just a fact. Cold. Simple. Like I was supposed to pity him. Like the past didn't matter, because now, in his final days, he had decided that I was useful again. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because after everything, after all these years, he hadn't changed at all. He wasn't reaching out because he missed me. Because he wanted to make things right. He was reaching out because he needed something. And this time, I had the power to say no. I took a slow breath. Then, for the first time in 15 years, I made my choice. I wasn't a scared kid anymore. I wasn't waiting for his approval. I wasn't hoping for a father who never existed. And if he thought I would drop everything to take care of him now, he was about to be very, very disappointed. I should have hung up. I should have said no and walked away. But I didn't. Because even after 15 years, after all the silence, the abandonment, the nights I spent wondering where he was, some small, broken part of me needed to hear what he had to say. So I waited. Let him fill the silence. Let him sit with the weight of the years he had thrown away. Because for the first time in his life, he was the one waiting for me. And I wasn't in a rush to make this easy for him. I know I don't deserve this, he said, his voice weak. Good. At least he understood that much. But that didn't change anything. He wasn't calling because he wanted to make things right. He was calling because he was dying. Because suddenly, now that he was sick and alone, family mattered again. And I was the only one left. I exhaled slowly, staring at the wall. So what do you want? I knew the answer before he even said it. It was obvious. I don't want to go through this alone. There it was. The same selfishness. The same expectation that, no matter what he had done, I would still be there. Because that's what family does, right? They take care of each other. But where was he when I needed that? When my mom worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on? When I sat alone at school events, watching other kids with their fathers? Where was he when I needed him? A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. You don't want to be alone? I shook my head, gripping the phone tighter. Then maybe you shouldn't have spent the last 15 years making sure I was. Silence. No excuse. No defense. Because there was nothing he could say to fix it. And now? Now he had to live with the consequences. Just like I had. For the first time in my life, I had the power. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to use it to help him. Or let him suffer alone, the way he left me. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch. 15 years too late, and now he wanted me to save him? Now he wanted me to care? I should have said no. Should have told him to deal with it the way I had to deal with his absence. But instead, I just sat there, gripping the phone, listening to his breathing, shallow, weak, afraid. And I hated that some part of me still hesitated. I thought about my childhood, the birthdays he missed, the nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he would ever come back. How every single time the doorbell rang, I used to hope, just for a second, that it was him. But it never was. And eventually, I stopped hoping. I stopped waiting. Because I learned the truth, when someone leaves that easily, they were never planning to stay. But now, after all this time, I had what I always wanted. A choice. His life was in my hands. Just like mine had been in his, when he left, when he ignored me, when he decided I wasn't worth staying for. And just like him, I could walk away. I don't want to be alone. His voice cracked on the last word. Like he was breaking. Like the weight of his choices was finally hitting him. Good. Because he wasn't alone by accident. He built this life. Brick by brick, decision by decision. And every single time he chose himself over his family, he made sure this was how it would end. I exhaled slowly, my grip on the phone loosening. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small around him. Didn't feel like I was chasing something I'd never catch. Because I wasn't that abandoned kid anymore. I had survived without him. I had built a life without him. And now? Now he was the one waiting for my decision. I had all the power. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to use it. I should have felt something. Pity. Regret. Even anger. But as I sat there, gripping the phone, listening to his weak, shaking breath, all I felt was emptiness. Because after everything, I didn't know this man. He wasn't my father. He was just someone who used to be. And now, when he had no one left, when the walls were closing in, he was finally reaching for me. Like I was supposed to catch him. Like I owed him that. The worst part? For years, I had imagined this moment. What I would say if I ever saw him again. Would I scream? Would I make him feel the pain he left me with? Would I walk away and let him wonder how it felt to be abandoned? But now, sitting here, staring at my reflection in the window, none of it mattered. Because the truth was simple. I didn't need him anymore. Please. The word cracked through the phone like a dying ember. I closed my eyes. I could hear it now. The desperation. The realization that he wasn't in control anymore. For years, he had the power. To leave. To ignore me. To pretend I never existed. But now? Now I had the power. And he knew it. I leaned back, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. He wanted me to come. To sit beside him, to hold his hand, to pretend the last 15 years didn't happen. But they did. And no amount of regret could rewrite that. A long silence stretched between us. Then I spoke. Calm. Even. You left me. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even an accusation. It was just the truth. A truth he had never been forced to face until now. I let the words hang in the air. Waited for his response. For some kind of apology. For him to admit that this was his fault. But all I heard was silence. Because he knew. And for the first time in his life, he had nothing left to say. The silence between us stretched. Thick. Heavy. Uncomfortable. For once, he was the one with nothing to say. And I let him sit in it. Because that's what he did to me. For 15 years, I waited for a call that never came. For 15 years, I wondered if he even thought about me. And now? Now he was the one waiting. Now he was the one feeling abandoned. I should have felt satisfaction. Should have enjoyed the fact that the man who left me was now desperate for my time. But instead, I just felt tired. Like I had carried this weight for so long, and suddenly I didn't want it anymore. Not the anger. Not the questions. Not the need for an apology that would never be enough. Because no matter what he said, it wouldn't change the past. I don't expect you to forgive me. His voice was barely above a whisper. Good. At least he finally understood that. But understanding wasn't enough. Because now, when he needed someone, when he had no one else, he wanted to rewrite history. Like I could just step into the role of a loyal son he never actually raised. Like I could pretend the last 15 years didn't happen. But they did. And that wasn't my burden to fix. I just don't want to be alone. His voice cracked, and for the first time I heard it, fear. Not just of dying, but of dying alone. And that's when I realized something. He didn't call me because I was his son. He called me because I was his last option. That should have made my decision easier. I should have told him no. Hung up. Walked away. But the truth? I didn't know if I could. Because even after everything, even after all the pain, some part of me still cared. And I hated myself for it. I gripped the phone tighter, my heart pounding. He had made his choice 15 years ago. And now? It was my turn. I sat there, gripping the phone so tightly my fingers ached. 15 years of silence. 15 years of being forgotten. And now, in his final moments, he wanted me to be the one to sit by his side. To make sure he didn't die alone. To be the son he had abandoned when it was convenient for him. I should have walked away. Should have told him no. Should have reminded him that he made his choice a long time ago. But instead, I just sat there. Heart pounding. Mind racing. Because even after everything, even after the anger, the resentment, the years of being nothing to him, some part of me still hesitated. I hated that. Hated that he still had the power to make me feel anything at all. Because I wanted to be done. I wanted to hang up and move on. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not without knowing why. Why now? The words slipped out before I could stop them. A question I had been holding in for years. Why didn't you come back before this? I expected excuses. Expected some pathetic justification for why he never called, why he never checked in, why he let me grow up believing I wasn't worth his time. But instead, silence. A long pause. And then, finally, a broken answer. Because I was a coward. I closed my eyes, my chest tightening. Not an apology. Not an attempt to make things right. Just the truth. The truth I had always known, but never thought I'd hear him say. For years, I thought maybe I wasn't good enough. That maybe if I had been a better son, he would have stayed. But that was never it. It was never about me. It was always about him. His selfishness. His inability to face his own failures. His decision to walk away because it was easier than being a father. And now, at the end of his life, he wanted me to be better than him. To give him the kindness he never gave me. To sit by his side when he had never been there for me. I exhaled slowly, my hands shaking. Because now, for the first time ever, I had the power to decide what happened next. I sat in silence, staring at the floor. His words echoed in my head. Because I was a coward. Not an apology. Not an attempt to fix what was broken. Just the truth. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing anything anymore. Not his love. Not his approval. Not even an explanation. Because I finally understood he had nothing left to give. Will you come? His voice was weak. Tired. Not demanding. Not entitled. Just afraid. Because he knew. He knew that for the first time ever I had the power. And I could choose to let him die alone. The way he left me alone. I exhaled, my grip loosening on the phone. I could hear the heart monitor beeping in the background. A slow, steady reminder that time was running out. For him. For me. For whatever this was. I thought about what it would mean if I went. Sitting beside him. Watching the man who had abandoned me take his last breath. Would it make me feel better? Would it give me the closure I never got? Or would it just pull me back into the past, a place I had finally escaped? I closed my eyes. Took a deep breath. Then I made my decision. Goodbye, Dad. Simple. Final. And before he could say another word, I hung up. I never called back. Never checked in. Never answered the emails from the hospital. And when the final call came, the one telling me he was gone, I didn't feel anything at all. No sadness. No regret. Just freedom. Because for the first time in my life, I was finally free of him. And now? He was the one left waiting for a call that would never come.